Welcome to our deep dive. We're tackling the world of positive thinking today. You sent in Norman Vincent Peale's El Poder del Pensamiento Positivo.
Oh yeah, the Spanish translation of his classic, The Power of Positive Thinking.
Exactly.
It's amazing how this book, it was first published in English way back in 1952,
Wow.
still connects with people.
It does.
This edition is from Guideposts Outreach.
Oh,
That was the interfaith ministry that Peale and his wife started.
and it sold over 20 million copies.
It's incredible.
Translated to more than 40 languages. It seems like people everywhere are still searching for that more joyful and fulfilling life that Peale talks about.
Absolutely. And Peale, he gets straight to it. He doesn't just tell you to think positive. He gives you techniques, actual practices to use.
So let's break those techniques down. Where does he even begin?
He thinks it all starts with believing in yourself. He argues that it's not just about feeling good, it's like the foundation for achieving anything.
So if you're always putting yourself down, you're holding yourself back.
Exactly. He's got this great story about a businessman who's on the verge of losing a big deal because he's just filled with self-doubt. Peale gives him this affirmation to repeat. It's, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me.
That's from Philippians 4.13, right?
That's right. And what's so interesting is just by repeating this phrase, the businessman starts feeling more confident, he changes his mindset, and actually ends up saving the deal.
It made you think, how much of our success or failure is really down to how we talk to ourselves?
Peale would say a lot. He even compares a cluttered mind to, like, trying to run a marathon with a heavy backpack. You'll wear yourself out before you reach the finish line.
That reminds me of something else he talks about, finding peace of mind. What were some of the practical techniques he suggested for that?
He mentions silence, like actually being quiet, replacing negative thoughts with positive ones, and even just filling your mind with peaceful images.
I like that, like creating a mental oasis.
Yeah.
Do you have any practices like that?
Well, I find that even just a few minutes every morning to sit in silence, focusing on my breathing, it really centers me before I start my day.
He compares that to someone who watches the news right before bed,
Oh, yeah.
and then they can't sleep because they're worrying about everything they saw.
It's like it emphasizes what we choose to put into our minds, you know? We need to feed our minds good things, just like we try to eat healthy foods for our bodies.
It makes you think about what you're feeding your mind on a daily basis.
Right.
Are you scrolling through negative news feeds, or are you searching out like inspiring content? And here's where it gets even more interesting.
Okay.
Peale connects this idea of a peaceful mind to physical energy.
Yeah.
I mean, like, if you're stressed and anxious, you just have less energy.
Exactly. But he goes even deeper than that. He connects it to faith, believing in a higher power. Peale thinks negativity drains us, and that faith and positive thinking can replenish us. It's like tapping into a limitless source of energy.
That actually makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
I know when I'm feeling down or overwhelmed, I have way less energy to do anything. But when I'm excited about something, it feels like I can work for hours and not get tired.
Right. It's powerful.
It is.
Peale doesn't just say, think happy thoughts. He actually gives specific techniques to make these shifts, like how he approaches prayer.
Yeah, he has a whole system for that. And it's not just about like sitting in a pew and hoping for a miracle.
Yep.
It's not passive at all.
He sees it as an active process. In fact, he even calls it a scientific process for coming up with creative solutions and getting through challenges.
I remember he has this 3-step formula. Was it something like convert into prayer, visualize, materialize?
It's it. He tells the story of a businessman who says this prayer formula led to his success. So the first step is to convert your problem into a prayer, talking it through with God.
So instead of stressing about it alone, you're bringing it to a higher power.
Yes. Then you picture the result you want, like you're watching a movie of it happening. And finally, you take action. You put in the work, and you trust that things are going to work out.
So it's not passive at all. You're actively going for your goals, but with this extra dimension of faith.
Exactly. Peale really goes into different prayer techniques throughout the book.
It's definitely something worth exploring. This idea of prayer as a force for creation, that's really powerful.
And it ties right back to choosing happiness.
Okay.
Peale is really firm on this. Happiness is a choice. It's not something that just happens to you.
It reminds me of like that old man on that TV show who just decided to be happy every morning.
Oh, yeah.
No matter what was going on in his life, he just chose joy.
Peale would love that. He'd say, that guy really got it. The power of choosing your response, even when things are tough.
But how realistic is that? I mean, bad things happen. Can we really just decide to be happy all the time?
Peel would say it's not about ignoring the bad stuff. It's about focusing on what you can control, like your attitude.
I guess that makes sense. Do you think we can choose happiness?
I think there's a lot of truth to it. It's not pretending everything's perfect. It's choosing to find the good, even in difficult situations.
Well, if we could choose happiness, then maybe Peele's next idea isn't so far-fetched either.
Yeah.
He talks about, like, the power of positive expectations.
Yes. He uses this phrase, throw your heart over the bar. Basically, set big goals and believe you can reach them.
So if you don't believe in yourself, who will?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that belief, that expectation of success, it can actually change your reality. He tells a story about a trapeze artist teaching a student to overcome fear.
Oh, wow.
He tells the student to actually throw his heart over the bar before he even tries the trick.
I can see how that applies to more than just trapeze.
Right. It's about trusting yourself, taking a leap, and believing you can do incredible things.
Have you ever felt that? Like you achieved something you thought was impossible just because you started believing you could do it?
I think we all have. It might be that promotion you thought you'd never get, or finally running that marathon you were sure you couldn't finish. It's amazing what we can do when we shift from doubt to belief.
And that brings us to Peele's view on failure, which is there isn't any.
He doesn't see setbacks as failures, just chances to learn and grow.
So, like, don't get stuck in the rough. Figure out how to get out.
Exactly. He was actually playing golf with a friend. The friend pointed out that hitting a ball out of the rough, the difficulty, it's only mental. It's about shifting your perspective, recognizing that we often limit ourselves.
So it's not about ignoring the hard stuff. It's about how you choose to respond to it.
And speaking of challenges, Peele tackles a big one. Worry. Something I think we all deal with sometimes.
Yeah, absolutely.
He gives some really practical advice for beating worry, right?
He does.
Yeah.
What was that concept of daily mental cleansing?
Yeah. It's about consciously letting go of anxieties and replacing those thoughts with affirmations of faith and peace. He tells the story about a businessman who had this ritual of throwing away his anxieties every night before bed. He would pray and just let go.
Like a symbolic way of releasing the burden of the day.
Yeah.
I could see how that would be helpful.
It connects to the idea that we don't have to carry our worries by ourselves.
What are your go-to ways to deal with worry?
For me, it's a mix of things. Exercise helps to clear my head. And spending time in nature, it always brings me peace. But honestly, sometimes just talking it out with a friend, that's all it takes.
That makes sense. And it actually leads us to one of Peele's most interesting ideas. Partnering with God to solve your problems.
He tells the story of a businessman who basically makes God his business partner, asking for guidance through prayer, trusting in a higher power to show him solutions.
So it's not just asking for help. It's about inviting a higher power into the process.
It's about cultivating this deep trust, knowing you're not alone in facing your challenges. Peele really stresses that we're not meant to face difficulties by ourselves.
It makes you think about where you find that support when you're going through something hard.
Yeah.
Is it prayer, meditation, nature, maybe just talking to someone you trust?
Peele believes there's a wellspring of support out there. We just have to tap into it. And this connection to something bigger is especially important when dealing with really tough emotions, like resentment and bitterness.
That's where he talks about rhinoritis, right?
That's it. He quotes doctors who have seen patients actually die from holding on to resentment. It's this powerful image of how emotions can actually affect our physical health.
So holding on to anger and bitterness, it's not just bad for your mental health. It can make you sick.
That's what Peele suggests. He even says that practicing goodwill and letting go of anger, it can be more effective than some medicines. Forgiveness is powerful stuff.
Wow. It's amazing to think about how much our inner state can affect our physical well-being.
Makes you really pay attention to what you're holding on to. What are you carrying that might be hurting you more than anyone else?
And that connects to his advice on relationships.
Yeah.
He says that focusing on people's good qualities is key to building real connections.
He tells the story of a man who had trouble with, social situations. He got over it by consciously looking for something he admired in everyone he met.
It's like that saying, we tend to find what we're looking for. If we're looking for flaws, we'll find them. But if we're looking for good in people,
We're more likely to build those positive relationships.
what are some of the things you admire most in people?
Kindness, authenticity, a sense of humor, those always stand out to me. What about you?
I really like people who are passionate about something, whether it's their work, a hobby, or a cause they believe in. It's inspiring to be around people who have that spark.
And you know what Peel would say?
What's that?
Nurturing that spark in others, it's just as important as nurturing it in ourselves.
It's like that idea that we rise by lifting others. It's not just about focusing on our own self-improvement. It's about helping those around us.
Peel believed that by doing that, by investing in the growth of others, we create this ripple effect of positivity.
That's beautiful.
It goes way beyond ourselves.
Yeah, it's a beautiful thought that our actions, no matter how small, can have a positive impact.
And that positive impact leads us to what might be Peel's most important message, tapping into this divine power within.
That's where he talks about faith, positive thinking, and surrendering to a higher power. And he talks about it from his own experience, right?
He does. He shares his own story about burning out and how he found his energy again through prayer, relaxation, and trusting in God's power.
It reminds us that even people who seem to have it all figured out can still struggle, and that seeking that support from something bigger, it can make a difference.
Peel's book isn't just about positive thinking, it's about realizing we're part of something much greater than ourselves, and that by tapping into that divine power, we can overcome anything.
It's a really powerful message of hope and possibility.
Mhm.
But it also begs the question, how do we actually connect with that sense of something greater than ourselves? Is it through prayer, meditation, nature? What works for you?
Well, I find
Hold that thought. We're going to jump into that and more in part 2 of our deep dive. Don't go anywhere.
I find that connecting with nature really grounds me, like a walk in the woods or listening to the ocean, even just feeling the sun on my face. It brings me peace and reminds me that I'm part of something much bigger.
How like hitting the reset button for your mind.
Exactly. But there are so many ways to connect with that divine power. Prayer, meditation, helping others, even being creative can be a powerful way to tap into it.
Peel would probably say it's about finding what works for you.
Definitely. And he emphasizes that connection to a higher power is especially important when we face tough times. He has a whole chapter about the power of faith in overcoming fear and anxiety.
What were some of the key takeaways from that chapter?
Well, he says that faith isn't about ignoring our fears. It's about acknowledging them and then trusting in something bigger.
So it's not pretending to be fearless. It's about having faith even when you are afraid.
I like that. That's a good way to put it. He tells this amazing story about a man who almost died. This man was on the brink of death and had a vision of the afterlife. It was filled with light and peace and beauty. And after that, his whole perspective on death changed. His fear turned into acceptance.
Wow. It makes you wonder what's waiting for us on the other side.
Peel believed that faith can give us comfort and hope, even when we're facing our biggest fears, including the fear of death.
And it's not just about facing those big fears. It's about handling those everyday anxieties that can wear us down. Peel seems to believe in the power of ritual and routine for dealing with worry.
Yes. Remember that businessman who would throw away his worries every night?
Yeah.
Peel says we can do similar things in our own lives.
I like that. What are some other ways we can create rituals for letting go of stress?
It could be something as simple as writing down your worries each evening and then ripping up the paper. Or burning it.
Okay.
The act of physically getting rid of those thoughts can be really helpful.
I can see that. What about those really deep anxieties? The ones that keep us awake at night?
Peel would say those are the times we need to lean into our faith even more. Remember that we're not alone in what we're going through.
He talks about making God your business partner, taking those anxieties to a higher power and trusting in the guidance that's out there.
And sometimes the answer isn't a specific solution. Sometimes it's just that feeling of peace, knowing you're not carrying the burden alone.
It's a powerful reminder that we don't have to go through these tough times by ourselves.
And that idea of connection and support, it's at the heart of Peel's message, especially when it comes to grief.
He has a really compassionate way of looking at loss. He talks about physical activity, emotional release, and faith.
He says to try to keep things as normal as possible, to get back into your routines, and to find strength in the idea of eternal life.
It's interesting that he encourages people to keep moving forward, even when they're grieving.
He knows it's important to let ourselves feel the pain, but he also says we need to find ways to keep living, to find meaning and purpose even when we've lost loved ones.
This connects back to choosing happiness. It's not about denying sadness or acting like everything is fine.
Right, it's about finding ways to experience joy and gratitude even in tough situations. And Peel believes faith can be a powerful source of comfort during those times.
So even in the darkest times, there's still light.
That's what Peel would say. And that light can often be found in our connections with others. He has a whole section in the book about making our relationships better.
And he's not just talking about surface level stuff, right?
No, he means real, meaningful connections.
Okay.
He talks about taking a real interest in others, being kind, focusing on their good qualities.
It reminds me of that saying, people might not remember what you did or said, but they'll always remember how you made them feel.
Keel would agree with that. He says our words and actions have a real impact on the people around us.
He shares that story of a man who was socially awkward, and he overcame it by consciously trying to find something admirable in everyone he met.
It's like our perceptions shape our reality. If we're looking for good in people, we'll find it. And that makes the world a better place.
What are some things we can do to cultivate that appreciation in our relationships?
I think it starts with really being present when we're with other people, really listening to them, acknowledging how they feel, and offering genuine support.
It's about putting our phones down, looking people in the eye, and really being there with them.
Exactly. It's also about showing our appreciation, saying thank you, giving compliments, doing little things for others. Those things can really strengthen our bonds.
And when there are conflicts, Peel says to approach them with compassion and understanding.
He says to try and see things from their point of view, communicate our own needs clearly and respectfully, and try to find solutions that work for everyone.
It's about remembering that even when we disagree, we can usually find common ground.
Peel believed that by approaching relationships this way, with compassion, we can create a ripple effect of positivity that goes beyond just ourselves.
It's recognizing that we're all connected, and our actions can make a difference in other people's lives.
And this leads us back to Peel's central message, tapping into that divine power inside us and using it to create a better life.
He says that power is there for all of us, no matter who we are or what we believe.
He focuses on faith, positive thinking, and surrendering to something bigger.
He believes that when we align our thoughts and actions with that divine power, we can reach our full potential and live a life with purpose.
Peel's book is full of examples of people who transformed their lives by using these principles.
Overcoming addiction, forgiving others, becoming successful in business. These stories really show the power of positive thinking and faith.
It's inspiring to see how these ideas work in real life. It shows us that change is possible.
Peel's book is like a roadmap, a guide for dealing with life's challenges and creating a life filled with joy and meaning.
It's about recognizing that we have the power to shape our own reality and to make the world a better place.
And he reminds us that this journey, this personal growth and transformation, we're not supposed to do it alone.
We have access to unlimited support and guidance from both inside and outside ourselves.
Peel's work is a powerful message. We're all capable of great things when we connect with that divine power and embrace positive thinking.
But what about those times when we feel our power fading, even our faith? When negativity takes over and it's hard to see the light?
That's a great question, and Peel actually talks about that directly. He has some really helpful advice for those moments when those negative thoughts just creep in and it feels like you're losing that positive mindset.
Yeah.
Peel gets it. He knows that even the most optimistic people will have moments of doubt and fear.
He calls it the negative undertow, that pull towards like cynicism and pessimism. It can be really hard to resist.
So what's the solution? How do we fight back against those negative forces?
Peel suggests a few things. First, he says it's important to just notice those negative thoughts when they pop up. Don't ignore them or push them away. That often just makes them stronger. Instead, just bring them into the light. Become aware of them.
Like shining a light on those shadows and taking away their power.
That's it. Once you've acknowledged them, Peel says to challenge those thoughts.
Okay.
Ask yourself, is this thought really true? Is there any proof? What's a more positive way to look at this?
So it's about changing your perspective.
Yeah.
Reframing those negative thoughts into something more helpful.
Peel would say it's about choosing faith over fear, hope over despair. He also talks about the importance of being around positive people.
That makes sense. If you're constantly surrounded by negativity, whether it's from the news, social media, or even the people around you, it's got to be harder to stay positive.
It does.
Yeah.
Peel says to be careful about the information you take in and the people you let into your life.
Surround yourself with good vibes.
Yeah, look for people who lift you up and inspire you. People who share your values and want to see you grow.
It's like creating a positive energy field.
And within that field, Peel suggests doing things that nourish your spirit, cultivating peace and well-being.
So things like prayer, meditation, being in nature, Maybe creative activities.
Exactly. Find the things that bring you joy and make them part of your routine. Peele also talks about helping others.
The idea that helping others can actually help us.
He thought that focusing on the needs of others can get us out of our own heads and give us a sense of purpose.
That makes sense to me. I know when I'm feeling down, doing something nice for someone else always helps.
Right. It's like that saying, the best way to find yourself is to lose yourself in the service of others.
And that takes us right back to Peele's main message, aligning our thoughts and actions with that divine power within.
He believed that when we connect with something bigger than ourselves, we tap into this incredible source of strength.
It's about trusting that we're not alone, that there's a force for good out there, even when it's hard to see.
And that force is always there for us. We just have to be open to it.
Peele's book is such a powerful reminder that we have the power to choose our thoughts, to shape our own reality, and to create a meaningful life.
It's not about pretending life is easy. It's about facing those challenges with faith, resilience, and belief in ourselves.
It's about knowing that we're all part of something bigger. And when we connect with that divine power, we can overcome anything.
El Poder del Pensamiento Positivo is more than a self-help book. It's a guide to living a more empowered life.
It reminds us that we're not defined by what happens to us, but by the choices we make and the attitude we have.
Peele wants us to embrace positive thinking, to find that deep connection with something greater, and to live a life of purpose.
I hope our deep dive into this book has inspired you to think about these ideas more and to discover the potential you have inside.
Remember, you have the power to choose your thoughts, to create your reality, and to design the life you want.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We'll see you next time.